Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Lofa Tatupu with me. Lofa's nickname is the Polynesian Lion. It might be harder to recognize his face without the helmet on, but today he's also an entrepreneur and business owner and excited to highlight how he's gotten to where he's at. So Lofa, thanks so much for being on with us today.
Yeah, man. Funny story. I don't know how the Polynesian lion came to be. Someone did a YouTube, and I mean, I thank them for their efforts, whoever they are, because I don't know them. But yeah, and the opening credits were the Polynesian lion. And, I like it. I dig the nickname, so I'm happy. I'm happy it's stuck.
I love it. Well, that's good. So to start with your story, football is something that was a part of the family, and your dad actually went to USC. So talk just about a little bit about growing up in a household where, dad had success at a sport, and, how that translated into maybe him parenting and giving you advice as you grew up.
Yeah, man. So my dad played 14 years in the NFL, 13 with the Patriots, which is why I grew up over in Massachusetts. And from the time I knew what a football was, I fell in love with it. And my dad, as most kids, their parents are their heroes, and I wanted to do what dad did. So I got into the family business fairly early. I remember going to the games, going to the locker room, all that stuff. And so it just felt like it was natural. And although it was a path less traveled, I'm sure we'll get there in my journey to the NFL. But yeah, man, he was instrumental in teaching me the game, and he even coached me in high school. And so there were some growing pains there for sure. Imagine a kid who you think everything when you turn 15, right? And, man, I didn't realize how wrong I was, but I look back, and even though we did bump our heads a couple of times, it was the greatest days of my life, man. And just some days I look back and I cherish forever. And so yeah, but yeah, my mom also, she was very instrumental in terms of me becoming a football player. She knew it was my dream since I was 7 years old, the first year I played. Yeah. And so she kept pushing me. She was the oldest of seven. Her dad was a Marine, her mom was Air Force. So as you can imagine, discipline and structure was heavily enforced in our household.
Absolutely. So talking a little bit about it, I mean, I am not the son of an NFL player with aspirations to go to the NFL, but I'm sure that there's some level of pressure that you either feel or is put on you. So talk a little bit about dealing with that in, those younger and formidable years growing up.
Yeah, man, it was kind of tough. I mean, obviously he cast a big shadow. I mean, those are big shoes to fill. And when you're growing up, you don't really know anything other than to be a kid, right? Yeah. And I love football. And what's crazy was, you'd hear parents and you'd hear other people like, man, that kid, kind of sucks, when in terms of relative to my age and how well I was performing or how well I wasn't performing.
Yeah.
But there was something that went into that, was the fact that I played with kids that were 3 or 4 years older than me because I was so heavy. Back then there was weight limits.
Right.
Yeah. And so it didn't matter if you were 8 years old, if you weighed 130 pounds, you were playing with like the third, fourth graders.
Yeah.
Even though you might be in kindergarten, first grade, it's like, and that there's a big difference there in terms of maturity, in terms of, everything. And so it was, I didn't realize at the time. I just thought, oh man, I must not be very good, but I loved it. And I still showed up every day, even to get my ass kicked by the older kids, because it was all my best friends. It was all their older brothers that I was playing ball with, so it was crazy. I'd be playing ball with them. And then when I go to the house, I'd be hanging out with the younger brother. I'm like, yeah, because he was my age. And so, but it was, learned a lot, mostly, how to take a punch and a hit. But it was, I think that really made football fun as I got to play with kids my age later. Oh, wait, this is going to get easier? Like, okay.
Right.
Because I was still having fun. Look, I'm telling you, I was one of those kids that was getting maybe like 10, 15 plays a game, just on the sideline, just like, man, like I'm not playing, but I still showed up every day. I practiced my ass off and I had fun with it. And I think that's what, when it started to get easy, that's what made it easy to stick with. It was like, oh man, I've been working hard and not doing well, but how's it going to be when I do actually get some playing time? So yeah,
Yeah.
man, it was crazy.
Absolutely. So as you're going through high school, you're playing both sides of the ball, playing quarterback, getting play on defense. And as you're getting recruited, if we started with the end in mind, we would say, oh my gosh, you probably had every single university offer you. But as you're getting recruited, there's really 4 schools that are the prominent ones and one that you end up going to. So talk a little bit about that transition in high school, recruiting, and then making the decision.
It's funny because a lot of people ask me, "Hey, what was the recruiting process like? What trips do you take?" I go, "Well, there wasn't one."
Yeah.
I so I was a quarterback, like you said. I played both sides of the ball, so I was a quarterback, and I was getting more looks for that position than I was linebacker.
Yeah.
My offensive lineman, they sent some tapes out to UConn, Temple, Rutgers, and the schools came to visit them, and they also pulled me out of class to talk. And I was like, what am I doing? It's like all my offensive line and like me, and I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So they're just talking to me about offense and stuff, and I was just like, oh man, you got the wrong guy. I'm going to play linebacker. Like, and I knew from the time I set foot on the field, linebacker just came easy.
Yeah.
It was literally at the young to it was see ball, get ball. And I was, I can do that. I could do that very well. And then, obviously you add in all the plays down the road, and you start to really have fun with it. It becomes a chess game instead of checkers when you take it to that level. But it was just so natural to me that I was like, I'm just playing quarterback because I have to right now. I didn't choose to play quarterback. They put me here. And it was fun, but man, I loved playing defense, and I think it showed too. So Maine comes out of nowhere, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to play linebacker." And I was like, "Okay, finally,
Yeah.
an opportunity." Because those other 3 schools, I said, "Hey, if I come there to play quarterback and it doesn't work out," and I was like, "If I don't start as a freshman," and they laughed at me, and I was like, "Hey, wait, let me finish."
Yeah.
If I don't start as a freshman, can I go play defense? And they were like, "We didn't even know you played defense." And I was like, all right, this is horrible. So, and then keep in mind, they were all in the Big East and ready to play the 99 to 2001 Hurricanes every year. Like, man. So, I mean, a bunch of Hall of Famers on that defense, right?
Oh yeah.
Imagine how that would have went.
You would have broken collarbones, brother.
Oh my God, full body cast. So I go to Maine. That's the only trip I took. It was awesome. It felt like a family. And then it's just, the feeling of being wanted. They're like, "Hey, man, we recognize your talent. We think you can help us win. Join the squad." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in." And so I went up there, and as usual, everyone writes you off when you don't land a big Division I scholarship, right?
Yep.
And I was like, whatever. And I was even starting to think like, man, do I need a backup plan now? Like,
yeah.
And luckily I didn't, but because I just kept working my ass off. But I get there and I'm like second or third on the depth chart. And so that's when I was like having like a, come to Jesus moment, or like wait a minute, you need to think about your life, Loaf, like, and what it's going to look like if you don't make it. And luckily it worked out, like I said. But yeah, man, I was wondering. I was like, what am I thinking? Like, I had to like humble myself, as if not landing a scholarship didn't humble you enough, right? But I had to really, because I talk to myself all the time. Usually it's bad words, like I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
That's what's produced for me. That's how I work best. So, I was like, "Hey, man, you idiot! Like, who do you think you are? You can't even start at 1AA. You want a Division I scholarship?"
Yeah.
And, yeah, man. So it was a real humbling experience, but I was still there, showing up every day, just like back when I was getting my ass kicked as a young kid.
Yeah.
And then, mid-season, I finally got a chance to go in. The guy in front of me got hurt. And in half the game, I led the team in tackles, had a couple of interceptions, and then they were like, "Well, why is this kid on the bench?
Yeah.
And but I didn't know that, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm going off of the coaches,
Right.
their assessment of me and where my game's at, and that I'm not ready to play. But
Yeah.
then, I got that taste, I got that chance to play, and it's what you do with your opportunity that matters the most. And so, if you want to talk about a pivotal moment, I think that was. I was talking. We were halfway through the season. I'm like, I'm already looking towards next season. Like, how do I get better? How do I, not even think
Yeah.
we have to finish this season. But that's where my mind went to. It was like, all right, you need to get bigger, faster, stronger. Like, I was going through the whole list. And then my chance came up. And luckily, I was in the moment. I didn't, look too far ahead in the future. And I capitalized on that opportunity.
Absolutely. And so that year you have a great year, and that leads to some interaction from some schools on the West Coast. So you end up deciding, hey, Oregon, that'd be a fun spot, right? Get all the free Nike gear, but you take a trip to see your mom in California. And before you're about to head up there, another moment happens. So talk a little bit about that.
It was the wildest shit ever in my life. Like, beyond my wildest dreams. Like, SC, and Pete, they said no to me out of high school. I didn't take it personal. I was like, yeah, I get it. You're Southern Cal. You have the pick of California.
Right.
What do you want with a kid from Massachusetts?
Yeah.
But unbeknownst to me, my dad sent the film to them. And so we're flying out. Saw my mom. I'm getting ready to go up to Oregon to sign my letter of intent because they offered me a full scholarship. And Oregon's at the top of the pack at this time. And, going to the Fiesta Bowl, Joey Harrington's up for Heisman, all those things. So, I was excited, right? And we make a stop at LA. And I thought my dad just wanted to see the campus, because he hadn't been there probably since he left.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I realized that the tour was turned into like a trip, like a recruiting trip. And then we show up to Heritage Hall and all the Heismans and all the jerseys, all the awards, man. It's insane. The national championships. I was like, this is football. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I'd never seen before. Like I'd always dreamed it to be.
Yeah.
And walked around, took a quick little physical. At that point, it dawned to me. I was like, okay, something's about to, I could end up here. And my dad's not saying anything the whole time. And we get to the big office, and Pete's there with all the coaches. I guess they were just breaking down my film. And because, Pete was still kind of unsure on the film. I was 210 pounds. It was the next spring now. I was about 225.
Yeah.
And so like when he saw me, he's like, oh, you're not that small. And I was like, thanks, Pete. But I guess in that meeting, Kennedy Pola, so Nick Holt was our linebacker coach, and he was standing on the table. He's like, yo, this kid's going to play for us. He's going to play well. And then Kennedy Pola, was the running backs coach. And he said, if he doesn't work out at linebacker, he can play fullback, and he's going to be a good special teamer. Like
yeah.
And so, while a lot of people looked at it as kind of a favor to my dad, which, hey, I mean, looking back, that's what it looks like, right? Like, oh, well, it's Mosey's kid. We're going to give him a scholarship. But I did have that Oregon scholarship in place. And that's when it went off in Pete's head. He's like, man, we might have to see this kid.
Yeah.
if he goes to Oregon. And so, I think any rational coach would be like, well, all right, I won't forget it. If I had him in my office and I said, no, man, good luck at Oregon, and I'm gonna have to see him, twice a year or every year. So he said, I understand you have a scholarship to Oregon lined up. And I was like, yeah, I'm supposed to be on a plane in like an hour. And he's like, if we give you a scholarship, and this SC was at the middle of the pack. He said, if we give you a scholarship, will you come here instead? And I said, absolutely. And he shook my hand. He said, congratulations, you're a Trojan. And
Wow.
I just remember looking over at my dad and like the smile on his face. And I got kids now, so I can only imagine, hopefully I get to, have that feeling too one day.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, man, it was, one of the few times, my dad he's like, came out, he's like, hey, man, I'm proud of you, man. Like,
wow,
you did something. Like, it was, not that he wasn't before, but he recognized it. And for him to, actually say it meant a lot to me. And it was insane, man. One of the greatest
Well,
days.
so let's dive into that a little bit. I mean, it's a overgeneralization. It's very much a stereotype, but unfortunately, it's very true. And that is males aren't great at communicating emotions to each other, right? We're just not great at that. And so when you do have that special moment of a father saying to you, like, I'm proud of you, you don't forget it. So talk just a little bit about that.
Never forget it, man. We were right there in Heritage Hall,
Yeah.
and he gave me a hug. So we walked through the big doors. All the steel trophies right there, and he was right there on the right. Pete's right here with all the coaches. And after I shook Pete's hand, gave him a hug, like, thanks, coach. I looked over, and we had the embrace, man. We had a hug,
Yeah.
and a moment in time that I'll never forget. That, yeah, man. I could see how much it meant to him,
Yeah.
and not that I went to his school or, but that everything I've been working for and I dreamed of, he got to witness, and he's
Yeah.
like, hey, man, like, you're doing it. Like, it was a moment of, just clarity of just like, hey, wow, this is no longer a dream. This is going in motion. And I have the opportunity now.
Well, and I want to highlight what you just said, because I think too frequently people do misunderstand that, right? They think when they hear I'm proud of you, it's like for that climactic moment of like, you just signed at USC. It's like, well, I am proud of that, but I'm more proud of, I know what it took for you to get here, right? Like, I know all of the sacrifices you made. I know all of the extra work you put in. I know all the mental and physical, anguish you went through to get here. So it's more of I'm proud of the body of work, not just this one, 18-second signing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, what's crazy is everything came easy to my dad, at least, from the stories. Cause he never talked. He didn't talk much about ball until I got to the NFL. Like, I tried to pick his brain, and, he'd of course give me pointers, but he was just like, I've had enough football in my life. Like, just, we can sit down and watch it. But it was like, he had scholarships everywhere for football, baseball, basketball. He had Division I scholarship for basketball. And I was like, dude, that's 1973. It's not like they got YouTube, you got to be kicking major ass over there.
Right.
Yeah. Get noticed by everybody over here. But I think that's probably what really meant the most to him, is that I didn't give up.
Yep.
The odds were stacked against me. Even when I went to Maine, like everybody was saying, hey, well, he's a good high school player. There's a lot of those. And I said the same too for, a little while. And my mind was in that realm. But I think that's what meant the most to him, is that, like, man, you set out on a mission and you didn't give up. And I think, that's what made him the proudest of that moment.
Absolutely. So now we're at USC. So now we got to show up and we got to ball out, right? Like, hey, now I'm here. Now it's the opportunity. And there becomes an injury on the USC team, and that kind of gets you a foot in the door, similar to like what had happened in Maine, right?
Yeah, I was second. I was the second Will, and I was the third, the weak side linebacker, and I was the third string Mike. I wasn't even like a thought at the Mike linebacker spot. We had brought in a JUCO, All-American, top 5 class, like we did every year. And that was part of my thinking. When I chose SC over Oregon, I was like, well, Oregon's got like the number 3 class every year, top 3 class every year. Like, we haven't had that yet here. And then the very next year, he brings in a top 5 class, like Mike Williams, like all these guys. Dude, it was insane.
Yeah.
And but so yeah, man, it was I got the opportunity to play because of an injury, unfortunately. And again, that injury happened in the bowl game when I was redshirting. And so when we came around, I was still second string Will, and now I was second string Mike because of the injury. And I was like, hey, I know the Will. I played it the whole last year. Can I stay at Mike? Like, I'm a middle linebacker. And my coach, Nick Holt, he brought me in the office, and he was like, all right, well, then start drawing up some plays and stuff. And like, I couldn't drop shit. He goes, how are you supposed to play Mike linebacker if you can't draw it up? And so, and that was another humbling experience. I was like, because I knew, so I drew up the defense. He goes, all right, let's drop the offense. Show me a power, show me a counter. And like, my head was spinning, and I was like, wait a minute. I really don't know football. And so, I mean, that whole offseason, I went from just a very fundamental knowledge of football to a master's degree.
Yeah.
I'm talking to where I'm out on the field and I'm calling out the offense's plays. I'm like,
Yeah.
yo, here comes like, yeah, like all the greats, man. Like you always hear about, they knew the tendencies and the percentages of a run to a pass to what play was coming, and they could just elevate everybody else's level of play.
Yes.
And I think that's really how I won my spot because I think whether me or anybody else playing that position would have had a lot of success. I mean, you look at the talent that was around us. I'm not ignorant or naive to say that, oh, that was me. It was just, I mean, right situation, right time, right? But I took advantage of, my opportunity. And I think it's incredible because it was just my hunger for learning more is what got me that spot, because I could have just stayed at Will and fought my ass off, but I wanted to add value to myself. And so, and the team. And so I was like, yeah, let me play some Mike. And man, the whirlwind of an experience that was, but I ended up winning the job going into the fall.
Absolutely. And winning is a consistent theme for the team from that point on. I mean, not only did you guys have a phenomenal defense, but your offense had the high powered, the Matt Liners, the Reggie Bush, Lendell White. So just talk a little bit about being a part of a USC Trojan team during that era. And I mean, what it was like to be, a 2-loss team over the course of 2 years and co-national champs and national champs.
Yeah. I played 2 years there, 03 and 04. And we went 12-1 and then 13-0. We ran the table. So in the 26 games, we went 25-1. And the only loss was to Aaron Rodgers and Cal. And in triple overtime, it took everything they had.
That was a phenomenal game.
Oh, man. It battles with those guys, man. And then into the NFL too. But yeah, man, it was the culture there is really what that competitive environment. And it wasn't just us. Like you looked around, like water polo, like soccer. There were national champions in other sports, and that tends to happen at a lot of universities because it's like you catch it's contagious. That energy of wanting to win and be in the spotlight and just competing. But yeah, man, you mentioned it. Our defense was always in the top 5. Our offense, we had 3 Heisman Trophy winners in 4 years. Carson Palmer, Matt Liner, Reggie Bush. And I mean, if Lendale stayed for his senior year, he would have had the 4th. So no shortage of talent. But I think what was really special was just the commitment everybody made to the program and to each other. And man, I'm telling you, it was the practices were harder than almost every game. I say almost because obviously Cal might have had a better practice week that week if they beat us. But I'm pretty sure we still kicked each other's ass, on that practice that week. It was, I mean, that was the best part, was that when we got to the game, it was like, man, we worked our ass off for this, for one half of football.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was insane. A split national title, an outright title, and then I felt like my stock was at an all-time high and time to sell or cash in on it.
Yeah. So before we jump to that, I want to talk a little bit just about coaching. I think at the end of the day, you can have all the most talented players in the world. Doesn't mean you're going to get wins, right? Because there's so many egos at play. There's so many guys that have to be willing to be the Lofas, right? That say, hey, I might not be ready right now, but I'm going to get ready. So when the opportunity presents itself, I am ready. And so many guys, well, if it's not my turn now, I'm checked out, and they're not getting ready. They're not preparing. Yeah. So talk a little bit about coaching and, bringing, unfortunately we're guys, you're 19 to 22-year-olds. You're all the best from the previous team, talk about bringing all the egos together and making it work inside of a team dynamic.
Yeah. I think, the coaches, absolutely. I say that all the time, man, like that, Nick Holt sitting me down that off season and teaching me football. Like, hey, you think you do football? All right, draw that shit up. I was like, ooh, okay. But it's just that on top of, I think the high character guys they brought in that like winning
Yeah.
was the most important thing. Like no one cared who scored, no one cared who made the tackle, no one cared. Did we win? Did we get the job done? And that winning changes people's mindsets when,
Yeah.
there were some guys that they came in from losing high school programs. They were the whole team, right? And then they're like, oh, wait, I don't have to do everything. I could just, do my job and
Yeah.
we're going to win. It's incredible when you see that light bulb go off or that mentality switch and how hungry guys get, for winning.
Absolutely.
It is contagious, man. There's no feeling like it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're out there killing yourself in practice, in the classroom, trying to get your edge. And then when, it finally gets the chance, you're not doing this just to play ball, man. You're doing this to win. And so the coaches, incredible. Ken Norton Jr., Rocky Seto, Nick Holt, all phenomenal coaches, and in their own way. I know Nick Holt taught me the game. Rocky Seto the next year, he taught me, the mathematical side of things, how to break it down and how to play the game within the game.
Yeah.
And Ken Norton taught me how to get ready for every game. And so it's like I had this master class of coaching that made my early success in the NFL or my transition seamless. It was like, I've been doing this. Do you guys know about this? Because I can help show you about this.
Yeah. So to highlight what you had just mentioned, and that is, I felt like my stock was really high. The 2 years I was able to play, one, we had great team success. Two, I had great, individual stats and accolades. And so typically declaring early, you're like, all right, they're probably going to be, a top 10 pick. And just due to some size, a lot of people thought, well, I don't know that Lofa's going to be in the first round or the top 10. So talk a little bit about making that decision. And I'm sure there were certain people, maybe even on coaching staff, that are like, maybe you should stay one more year, man. But just talk about knowing, hey, I truly believe this is best for me. And even though there might be some outside opinions, still making that choice.
There was almost nobody that agreed with my decision, including my parents. Definitely not some coaches, but my parents too.
Yeah.
They were like, wait a minute, relax. And I knew, how hard I was working as a fan of football. I knew what my competition was, the landscape, the linebackers that were declaring that year. I did my due diligence. I treated it like a business decision. So, and then I just knew I wasn't going to get taller. I was not going to get much faster. So I was like, what is another 100 tackles and leading the team in tackles again, getting more interceptions and sacks? Is that really going to wow them next year to say, okay, he's a first rounder now?
Right.
I believed I was anywhere from second to fourth round
that
season. And so, a lot of conversations with my parents, and then my mom finally, she was just like, you know what, I trust you, just go with your heart, because if your heart's not in it, it doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it's shit happens when your heart's not in it. You don't have a clear vision. That next season could have been horrible because I'm already dreaming of the NFL.
Right.
So with that, and then we won 2 national titles. Getting the butt kiss and all the other awards, Nagurski, those have been cool. I probably wasn't going to get those either, just because those go to the top 10 picks, those first round, the surefire. And it didn't really matter to me. The only thing that mattered to me was the national championships. Yeah. I was like, we got 2 natties.
Yeah, you got 2.
A third would be nice. It really would. But I'm not going to delay a year of free agency, injury, all the stuff that we put into this. I'm not delaying another year for that. And then I remember I had a talk with a coach, and he said, well, you're probably going to be a 5th or 6th round pick. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. But it's good to know that you feel that way about me. But I said, I'm not going any later than the 3rd round. I promise you that. Because I had looked at previous draft, the 04 class, and I was comparable to like a lot of the guys that were going 2nd, 3rd round. And so when the 5 class came. And then I found, a lot of like all 3 of the Ohio State guys were staying. Hawk, Schlegel, like I did my homework.
Yeah, right.
Carpenter, Hawk, Schlegel, they were all like staying. I think Carp might have came out, but Schlegel and Hawk stayed for 06. And I was like, okay, well, that's 2 less linebackers to be picked, over me. And so yeah. And it was not an easy decision, right? But if you're gonna grow, you got to get out of that comfort zone. And so I just took the next step. It just felt like the next natural step in the progression of my journey.
Absolutely. So heading into the NFL draft, there's combines, right? They all of a sudden care a whole bunch about how fast you can run 40 yards for really no reason, because you never once did that in your NFL career. But all of a sudden it matters a whole bunch. And the draft comes, draft day comes. Talk a little bit about the moment of finding out where you're going, you're getting drafted, and all that.
So my dad's college roommate throws a party for us at his oceanside home, right on the water in San Diego. It's gorgeous, man. Got like, I don't know, probably like 50, 60, 70 people, family and friends, just, people just kept showing up. And I was like, yes, let's go. And back then, luckily, there was only 2-day draft, right?
Yes.
You get rounds 1 through 3 and then 4 through 7.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, it's going to be a long day because I expect 3rd round, but whatever. And so we're there, we're partying, we're having a good time. It's just as I'd imagined, or, what I'd always dreamed of. And, I'm like, man, we're into the 2nd round. I should be hearing, I should be talking to my agent, something.
Yeah.
No calls. And I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's 3rd, I'm like, still hoping for 3rd round. And then out of nowhere on the screen, the little ticker pops up, doo-doo-doo, and Chris Berman's still talking. And he's like, oh, a trade's been made. And the Seattle moved up. They swapped 4th rounders and 2nd. And they moved up to select Lofa Tatupu. And it just pops up on the screen. And I'm talking food, drinks, everything was flying. It was absolutely insane. And,
so you found out on the TV.
Live. There's, and you know what? There couldn't be a better way. And I hate surprises, but I enjoyed that surprise. It was, and it's crazy because my Uncle Jack, it was my dad's best friend from when he was a kid in Hawaii. He said, hey, I heard 2nd round Seahawks. I was like, get out of here, Uncle Jack. This is like the night before. He's like, hey, I'm just saying. So I don't know who he talked to, but he knew it. But yeah, dude, it was insane. So then what was crazy, I didn't hear anything because I didn't have any cell reception at the beach. And so Holmgren gets on the phone and he's like, hey man, you all right? He's like, we didn't know where you were. He's like, everybody's telling me you're a smart player. You didn't check for cell reception at the beach. I was like, coach, I'm sorry. He's like, are you ready to play? I was like, I'm ready to contribute. And I can't wait to get up there. But it was, that's the day you dream of, right?
Yeah.
Like women, they dream of their wedding day.
Yep.
Kids, they dream of being drafted in their sport. And man, it couldn't. I'm glad I wasn't a 1st rounder. I had to fly to New York and deal with that, whole circus and show.
Yeah.
I got to be with my friends and family on the beach, and we all got surprised when it happened. That was the funniest part.
That's amazing. So as you're heading to Seattle, once again, you're not walking into the worst team, right? You're walking into a team that's very competitive. So my guess is the theme here is staying true, right? I show up to Maine, I'm not in the starting role right away. I show up to USC, I'm not in the starting role right away. But throughout that first year, you do get the opportunity to step in and you step up. So talk a little bit about, preseason training camp and then when that opportunity came for you.
Yeah, man. Super excited to get up here, find out how beautiful, Seattle is. Really a hidden gem, man. But, football was the mission and, that was my focus. And I couldn't wait to get up here and play football. They were contending year in, year out. They're going to, I think they had a couple division championships already under Holmgren, but they couldn't get over that hump.
Yeah.
And so myself, Leroy Hill, we both got drafted together, and And it's like you said, we had a ton of talent on the offense. We had the number one offense, right?
Right.
Makes things a lot easier. It's very similar to SC.
Yeah.
Now, defense, we had a lot of studs, man. Just, ballers. Grant Wistrom up front. I think I had the most underrated defensive line. Grant, Rocky Bernard, Chuck Darby, Bryce Fisher. There were so many guys. Marcus Tubbs. I could just go on, man. Craig Terrell. And what reminded me of SC was everybody was selfless, man. Like, we're here. And I think the biggest stat that points to that is we led the league in sacks with like 54, and not one person had over 10. Wow. Our top guys had like 8, 7, 9, 6. Yeah. Like, it was so evenly spread out from everywhere, from the D-line, linebackers, secondary. It was team ball and some of the most fun football I ever had. But yeah, going into that camp, that preseason, so we got the best, all you hear about is Sean Alexander, right?
Yeah.
You didn't hear that there's 2 future Hall of Famers in Walter Jones, Steve Hutchinson, Robbie Tobeck, a veteran that's just a beast, Chris Gray, Sean Locker. You didn't hear about those guys. And so I'm out there, and it took me back to like my, playing with the older kids when I was, 7. Playing with 10 and 11-year-olds, just getting my ass kicked. And like in my mind, I was like, it's all right. I've been here before, I'll be all right. But I was thinking, I was like, man, is this what they meant by like, you're not ready for the NFL? But so, and then what made matters worse, we go into Kansas City, the game 3. So I missed the first game because of the contract. We were trying to get that settled. Came back, my hamstring, I injured my hamstring like the second week. And third week, it's when all the starters are going to play. And so they're like, hey, you're going to start today. And I was like, okay. We go out there. I had like 2 tackles in the first 3 quarters. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Because they had Willie Rowe, Hall of Famer, Brian Shields, Hall of Famer, what was it? Waters, Will Shields, Brian Waters, Casey Weigman. They had 3 Hall of Famers on their line, a couple other Pro Bowlers. And so, as soon as they go out of the third quarter, I had the next like 5 tackles in a row. And I was like, okay, that's a big difference.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Their starting group to their second group. But then I talked to, like our team, my O-line. I was like, yo, are these guys as good as you? And they're like, yeah, man, they're that good. I was like, okay. I go, is everybody? I go, no. He's like, these are the best 2 lines you're going to see.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's insane. But that was my experience right off the bat, was squaring off against the 2 best O-line with multiple Hall of Famers and Pro Bowls,
Yes.
But
so with that first year though, I mean, to think about that, all right, I had 2 tackles in the first 3 quarters of a game. But then by the end of the year, you had been named, I think, either or number 2 defensive rookie player of the year. And you also had been nominated as a team captain, which they don't just hand that out to anybody. So talk a little bit about, what it is, about Lofa that earned that captain decision and why people wanted to nominate you for that.
I think, I don't know, but my guess would be that I showed them how much I love the game.
Yeah.
I think that's what came across. And then I showed them how important they all were to me. Not just as a football player and a teammate, but as a person,
Yeah.
A lot of people that get leadership, it's different in everyone's head, right? And they think, oh, just, especially a middle linebacker, he must have just been in there barking at people. No, man, that's not how you go about it. You have to earn their respect.
Yep.
Then you earn their trust. And then from there you build. And I think the 16 games that we had was allowed me to be named captain. Yeah, that's the thing I hold dearest to me, is that,
right,
the highest honor, man.
Yeah.
I was 23 years old and I got voted captain, and there's some grown ass men that I always looked up to. Man, Grant Wistrom is one of my favorite football players of all time. And I got to be a captain next to him, man. It was insane. But as a leader, I never told anybody to do anything. I asked them to do. I was like, hey, will you please, and you'd be surprised everybody's reaction when you ask nicely, how much, how eager they are to actually do it. You know what? That sounds like a good idea. Let's go, and I mean, just that team first mentality, because no one does anything alone.
Absolutely.
Not anything great anyways.
Yeah.
So like I said, I told like we had a lot of help, whether it was at SC or whether it was, at Seattle.
Yeah.
I had some great teammates, man. And that is to me the highest honor my greatest honor that I've ever had.
Absolutely. Well, once again, though, in your story, winning is something that we are becoming good at, and you get the opportunity to play in the Super Bowl. So, national championship, Super Bowl. I'm not going to ask you to compare them, but just talk about, getting the opportunity to play in the Super Bowl against the Steelers and, that game and memories from that.
Yeah, they're both special in their own right, because you can't lose a game in college, as we learned going 12-1.
Yeah.
We weren't invited to the outright national championship. So we ran the table the next year. And that's a pressure that very few know about, right?
Right.
Being perfect.
Yeah.
and finishing. And so that's what made the national championship so special. But the Super Bowl, man, it's the greatest event that any professional sport can have, And I mean, I know the Masters is on right now, and respectful of it, but we don't get 4 days to figure it out.
Four quarters.
And so, we don't get a series, home and away, like baseball and basketball and hockey. You have 60 minutes to figure out who is the best team for that year. And so it's incredible, man. Unfortunately, it did not go the way we wanted it to. But man, and for years I always thought, man, I wish I never went, right? I used to say that a lot. I wish I never got that close to the trophy. But looking back, man, we know what happened, and whatever. Like you can't give energy or time or anything to something that you can't control. And there was some shit during that day that was out of our control.
Yep.
So, but the journey, which even the people that win it, they say, what was it all about? It wasn't about that moment, like we talked about earlier. It wasn't about the crowning, right? Yeah. It was about the 3 to 6 months leading up, from OTAs to camp, mini camp to actual camp, like that journey with those, 53, 60 guys, including the practice squad. I mean, of just fucking putting it all out there, man. Like, and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. So for you, and once again, if we had 5 hours, we would dive into each season. But for you, you've got a great career, and after a while, you end up having an injury, and that ends up being one of those things that if you can't make full recovery, kind of ends the career there. But talk a little bit about just going through injury, but also that transition out. I think for anyone that's dedicated that much of their life to something, right? I mean, that could be a relationship, that could be a friendship, it could be your job that's not athletics. It's just hard to make that transition because it's such a big part of you. So talk a little bit about that and that navigation for you.
Yeah, man, I think everybody's is different, but similar that I don't care how you go out, it's not easy.
Right.
Say goodbye to something that you love.
Yeah.
And I think it's football's always been there for me since I was 7, right? Yeah. I could always, no matter how bad things were going, once football ended, we get to that next, you're into that baseball, but I'm still dreaming about football. And it was coming back around. And the finality of this game in particular, this is another reason it's the greatest game ever. You can't just go down the street and have a pickup tackle game, man.
The local Y doesn't have that league.
You can't just wrestle up 22 people, play Iron Man offense and defense. Like, I know people try to during the Turkey Bowl and they do their Thanksgiving. That's not football. No offense, everybody. But baseball, basketball, there's beer leagues, basketball, they got those leagues, hockey, they got their leagues. So you can't do that with football. So like I said, the finality of the game, when it's over, is over. It makes it that much more special, looking back at it. But man, so the transit, I mean, you hit on the injuries. What a lot of people, because I missed 11 games. It was 11 or 12 games in 2009 when I tore my pec. But I've had, in the 6 years, I was already, not the biggest, not the fastest, not the strongest, right? Coming in.
Yeah.
In those 6 years, I had at least 3 concussions every year and 10 surgeries.
Wow.
And so when you talk about, I mean, the battle just to get back on your feet,
Yeah.
you know, and know that, hey, guess what? These new guys, they're bigger, faster, stronger every year. Like,
Yep.
You know, that was a part of it that, I mean, it's hard, but it's a part of the challenge I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah.
You know, it was just, you know, how far can you take it? Like,
Yep.
and I said, when I play on May, till the wheels fall off, man. And I think the reason people still, you know, remember me playing, because I only played 6 years, like you said, is because, you know, I did it my way. And I went out there, you know, and I even got carried off on my shield. Like the last game at home, I had the trainers carrying me off the field because I had, you know, one of my worst concussions too. I still made it back to play in the playoffs that next week, but that was my last game at home in front of the Seattle fans. And so, and man, it's special, man. And the transition out of it is scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like there's no backup plan.
Right.
I feel, and this is just me, you know, if you leave yourself a way out, when shit hits the fan, it's too easy to be like, well, I can always fall back and do this. I can, you know, no, man, there's no going back. Was it like the Vikings? They burned the ship. No, we're here. We are here. And I don't know. There was something exciting about that, something thrilling, right? And chasing your dreams. And so now don't get me completely wrong. I think I would have found a role in football had football not worked out.
Right.
And I would have lived my dream through coaching and, you know, and anything like that, you know, maybe being a scout and trying to be a GM. But in terms of playing, I did not have any backup. And so when I got out of it, I ended up, after a couple of years, I went home, you know, got to play daddy, you know, but we had our youngest, our oldest at the time. We only had one, and he was like, we got to see all the firsts, right?
Yeah.
The first steps, the first words, everything that everybody dreams of, right? As a parent, it's like I was there for all of those. And so, and then I got the call, and right as I got the call, my second was being born. So I had two little boys. They're 11 and about to be 8 here soon. It's crazy, but they were 3 and 1 at the time. And so I got the call to come coach, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, why not? You know, let's do it. Let's see what happens. And because I still love the game, and at the time, you know, like I said, I was just, there's only so much golf you can play, man. And like looking back, I wish I really just tried, like gotten real lessons and like taken that as far as I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, there's too many good golfers out there. So
well, I just want to compliment you on this. So, you know, 2 forces from your past team up, that's the Seahawks and Pete Carroll, right? And that's where a call comes from. But my guess is they didn't call every linebacker that had played at USC to come coach. They didn't call every linebacker that had played for the Seahawks to come coach. And you were like number 9 on the list, and just finally the first one to say yes. There was something about the way you know, went after the game, the way you approached it, and the way you carried yourself that was like, you know what, this is someone that we want to help grow our infrastructure, right? So, I mean, talk to us a little bit about what that meant to you to get the call to come be able to coach.
Yeah, I mean, it was an incredible honor, right? Because there's people knocking at the door all the time, like, hey man, like you know, any kind of assistant role or, you know, a scout and then eventually transition to, it is a hard, you know, profession to not only make it in, but get your foot in the door. So, to that point, yeah, man, when the Hawks, they played the Patriots in the Super Bowl, right? It was like the week after. You know, my name had been brought up in a couple circles to coach as a potential from some coaches that I played for before. Yeah. And they said, hey, if I get my own team, you know, you're coming with me. And I was like, all right, well, we'll see. Yeah. And so I think that Seattle got wind of that. And you know, Pete and John, I've always, you know, me and Pete, I mean, we bumped heads since college and then even into the NFL. But, there was, when I got released, I didn't think that they would think to call me to come back. And
Yeah.
so I started getting these texts, like Cam Chancellor texted me, who I think KJ texted me. They had Mo Kelly, who's a player development guy, who I've known since I was 22, since I was a rook. And I was like, hey, man, if this is real, man, tell Pete to give me a call. And so he did, and we ironed things out, he was like, hey, man, you want to, I felt like I was the kid walking into that the Heritage Hall and
Yeah.
Pete all over again. Like, he's like, hey, man, you want to go chase, some championships? And I was like, hell yeah. Look, I did a lot of things in my career that I am more than content with because I left it all out there. But that Super Bowl, man, and I'm still saying I'm gonna get one before I'm gone, man. I will.
Let that be known to any NFL coaching staff or GM that's looking for a great defensive coach. Shoot, he can even coach quarterbacks. So if you're listening, call him, give him a call.
I think the only reason I stepped away, I loved it. I absolutely loved coaching, especially learning, more from Pete and his philosophy and, how much success he's had, him and John. But my kids I missed my oldest 5th birthday and my youngest his 2nd birthday because I was at the combine in February. And then in July, I was already at camp for my youngest. So it's like, it puts shit into perspective real quick. Like, there's some sacrifices that in everything, but in particular with the commitment that this takes, and I couldn't, I was coaching Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, right? I couldn't rob them of their time either. That's disrespectful. If you're not all in one way or the other, it's disrespectful to both sides. So, I made the tough decision to walk away after my 2-year contract, and still love them. Would like to go back in a couple of years. I think maybe the youngest, when he gets like 2 more years, he gets to 10 because that's when they don't want to hang out with dad anymore. So that's when I'll go back.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap up the themes of, our conversation today, once again, something I'd like for you to just shed a little bit of light on is it's a cliche term, but it really is true. And that's, falling in love with doing the little things that help you get to the big successes, right? So many people see that high accomplishment, that high accolade, and they're like, gosh, I want to be Lofa. But then it's like, well, follow me around on, Monday through Saturday and see all the things I do. And people are like, well, I don't want to do that. And it's like, well, then you don't get Sunday, right?
No.
So talk a little bit about, being able to fall in love with the things that you do that maybe aren't sexy. They're not glamorous, but it's what allows you to have, that shining moment, right?
It's the details, man. I mean, those little things that really do, they become, habitual creatures of habits, man. We're either developing the habits that are getting us to where we want to go, or we're hurting ourselves. We're losing sight of that goal. And so, but yeah, man, I mean, because of my study habits on top of practice habits, on top of everything and how much film I watched, I knew guys better than they knew themselves. And that's how a guy that was slower than everybody, not as big as everybody, not as strong as everybody, made so many plays. It was like I found my edge.
Yeah.
Every single way, and left no stone unturned. And I think, it's just about wanting to be the best.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are, you can still be your best version. And when you get that vision in your head, when you find it, you just build habits that propel you towards that goal,
Yeah. I love it, man. Well, anything else you want to make sure to highlight with our time together again?
No, other than plant medicine has put me back together.
Yes.
I'd be missed if I didn't say what my new passion.
So talk about the entrepreneurial role now.
Yeah. So, when I also came back to coach, I got into real estate in the I-502 legal recreational cannabis industry. And I didn't know it was going to change my life completely. I'm talking from, I got up to like 280 pounds, put on a bunch of weight. I was just going through the motions. All the cognitive deficits I was dealing with from the concussions were just present. I was like, oh my God, like I can't
Yeah.
believe, the memory loss, the, fatigue. Like I couldn't even work out anymore. And hemp and cannabis has put me back together. So we started a cannabis company called 1937 Farms, which is legal up here, only in the state of Washington. And then we have Zone In CBD, which upon further, studying and R&D, I was finding out how good, CBD was for the mind and body, and
Yeah.
repairing all the trauma, not just physically. We all go into football knowing, there's some physical sacrifices we were making.
Correct.
I saw my dad, before he passed, at 54, his knees were killing him, his body was aching, everything. But, the mental and emotional trauma, that's what the NFL, they haven't really figured out. They're making steps. They're trying to find ways to make sure that guys are walking away from the game rather than getting carried away from the game like I did.
Yeah.
And, so I appreciate them for that. But the sooner we make cannabis, well, hemp is legal, but also cannabis, and really the only difference between the two plants is the THC levels, the varying amounts of THC. Hemp, little to none. Cannabis, it has THC. And so this is the plant that's going to heal us all. And like, this is the plant that could put a better product. I hope the owners are listening. It could put a better player on the field, keep them there longer, and then have less problems when they exit.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important part. They're going to be able to walk away from the game.
Right.
I'm back playing basketball every day. I'm 235 pounds. I've held this weight for like 5 years now since my journey in cannabis and hemp. And every day I get an email of how it's changed somebody else's life. That's what drives me these days.
Absolutely. Well, Lofa, I want to say thanks so much, man, for just highlighting the pivotal moments that have led to where you're at. And I'm super excited to continue to watch your journey and all the things that you're accomplishing and you're going to accomplish. So you just got to promise me, I don't know if it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, though, we get to hop back on and see what new business is going on and how these current businesses have grown, my man.
I would be honored to, man. Thank you for having me, and stay blessed, brother.